Solutions of Skylab before temperatures began to fall. Projections showed that if the present trend continued, the workshop would be below 100 degrees the following day. It wouldn't be the most comfortable environment, but after a discussion with the crew, the decision was made to proceed the next morning with the normal flight plan. The crew put in a long, trying day activating the workshop. Getting things organized and in the proper place was a chore in itself. However, they were discovering to their satisfaction that moving big pieces of gear presented no problem in the weightless environment. By noon, Monday the 28th, with the workshop completely activated, primary emphasis was on getting the biomedical experiment started. This was the first in a series of lower body negative pressure and vector cardiogram experiments. Paul White's the subject, Joe Kerwin the observer. There followed a workout on the bicycle ergometer to check metabolic effectiveness and to evaluate the bicycle as an exerciser for long-duration missions.
Ideally, the handlebars would be longer than they are now and would kind of sweep down around you so you could grab them in the right place.
Other medical experiments conducted over the next few days included blood samplings from each crew member to satisfy the 5 blood study experiments. Body mass measurement to determine each crewman's daily weight and to validate the use of this device for weighing in 0G. A rotating litter chair, a part of the human vestibular function experiment, tested for motion sickness, rotation perception, and ability to determine orientation. In addition to these and other medical experiments, science experiments were simultaneously being performed. Here, Pete Conrad operates the Apollo telescope mount control and display panel in preparation for the solar physics studies. In subsequent operations, data such as this active region of the sun was recorded by the telescope.
Clear sound, but it's pretty clobbered where we're
Start. Got a tape motion light.
The Earth resources experiments also got underway after activation of the 6 remote sensing systems.
Mark, S-192, I got a ready light.
We just came out from over the clouds. How about that?
Auto sequence start on 90 and you EPC go.
From a broad field of view provided by this large space platform, the systems began photographing selected portions of the Earth's surface in the visible and near-infrared spectral regions.
Fire one out.
Although the crew had earlier encountered a number of equipment problems, the result of excessive temperatures, the prospects now looked bright for a full 28-day mission. The temperature had stabilized in the mid-70s. The food was good, and so was morale. And up to now, the 4,700 watts of available power appeared to be adequate as long as high-load experiments were staggered. However, by the 5th day, some of the storage batteries had begun to perform in a degraded manner. The power shortage grew critical, and it became apparent that to carry out the mission, the jammed solar panel would have to be deployed. Meanwhile, at Marshall, in the underwater simulator, techniques were being developed based on TV coverage of the solar wing. Using only tools and equipment like those aboard Skylab, the backup crew developed a set of procedures they felt would do the job. On June 7th, astronauts Conrad and Kerwin made their exit to put the plan into operation.
Just take your time. Okay, Houston, we're out there. We have the debris in sight. There looks like enough room to get the cutter, and I'm trying to help Joe stabilize.
As the simulations had shown, access to the solar wing was the big problem, what with few handholds or foot restraints. It was solved by joining pole sections of the twin-pole sunshade, anchoring it by hooking a pair of cutters onto the strap that held the wing. Thus, a temporary handrail was fashioned that allowed Pete Conrad access to the solar wing, where he attached a tether. The cutters then severed the strap and the tether was pulled taut to free the wing actuator. After the crew returned to Skylab, an attitude change placed the solar array system into the sun, where, after a period of warming the hydraulic dampers, the panel arrays fully deployed. Within hours, the electrical power surged to almost double the previous level. It meant that the power management scheme could be abandoned, and the original flight plan could be resumed. In the days that followed, the nagging problems that had plagued the astronauts from the start began to resolve. The mission began to sound much more routine, more like a normal working day. Experiments were coming off like clockwork, and a wealth of scientific data was being gathered. Experiments such as this one in materials processing. With more leisure, it was not uncommon for the men of Skylab to indulge themselves in the fluidity of movement in zero-G. The weightless condition also simplified sleep accommodations. Since there was really no up or down, the only requirement was a sleeping bag type of restraint. And as mentioned earlier, heavy objects were easily handled. It was the small pieces that sometimes got away. But even when objects were lost, they generally turned up sooner or later on the air conditioning screen, there to be reclaimed. On day 29, after performing final closeout of the orbital workshop, the crew donned spacesuits for the return leg of their mission.
Skylab Houston, we're in at-hold CMG. You're go for undocking.
Okay, stand by.
Roger.
Okay, we're free. We got 0.4 of a foot per second, Houston.
Roger.
Bye-bye, Skylab.
After undocking, they remained on station briefly to obtain photographic coverage. Following deorbit, the command module, its heat shield trailing a fiery plume, re-entered the atmosphere. For the first time in about a month, the crew experienced the forces of gravity.
Ticonderoga standing by for sonic boom now.
Skylab Houston through Ra 1. How do you read?
Roger, release you loud and clear, Houston. Everything's okay. We're out of 40,000.
Very good, Pete. You're in the groove.
Hello, recovery, Skylab. On the mains, everything's okay. And this is recovery. We have a visual below the overcast, about 100 at 050, 6 miles from Ticonderoga. Recovery splashed down, and it looks like stable 1. Ticonderoga, roger, out. Hello, recovery, Skylab here, Reed. Recovery, read you loud and clear. How's it going? Okay, everybody's in super shape. That's great. Welcome back. Thank you.
Splashdown occurred some 700 miles off Southern California, near the recovery ship, the USS Ticonderoga. After retrieval and positioning on the flight deck, the command module hatch was opened.